What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Shookum, with Gamer Ammo. Today we're talking about Modern Rotisserie Draft, more specifically, what to first pick. This is the most anticipated thing about a Modern Rotisserie Draft when you're organizing it with your friends. You're really hoping, like, oh, I get to be first and I get to snap pick this card, or if I'm third, I really hope that this one makes it to me. This is one of the most exciting rounds of Modern Rotisserie Draft. It really prepares the rest of the draft. So I think it's very important to have a strategy going in. So I'm going to give you guys today the most powerful cards to first pick. First on the list is going to be Batterskull, and I'm going to group Worm Coil Engine in with that because they accomplish basically the same thing. They're going to go in almost every deck that you're ever going to do. They're both very flexible. They have some resilience to them. Batterskull and the fact that you can bounce it back to your hand, replay it, so when the creature dies, you don't lose value. It'll help you in stalled out games and board states. Worm Coil Engine and the fact that when it dies, it spawns 2 more tokens, one with Death Touch, one with Lifelink. So these are both going to very much further your game plan and put you ahead of the curve by casting them. Every deck that you're going to play in a Modern Rotisserie format is going to want this, except maybe you might be able to make a case for the most aggroest of red 1-drop mono city. Maybe. But for the most part, every deck that you're going to draft is going to want one of these. Next on my list is Liliana of the Veil. If you want to start a color, it's going to be black or blue. If you're going to stake your claim, if you're going to put your flag down and say, I'm in this color, it's black or blue. Those are the 2 colors that you're going to stake in. Liliana of the Veil is the most powerful card you can stake your claim with. It's very flexible. It's going to give you control over the game and tempo. It acts as multiple forms of removal because you're going to be able to 2-for-1 with her. So she comes down. If they have a creature, if she slams it on turn 3 and they have a creature, you just minus it and they have no more creatures. You can start generating value out of her from there. So she's going to get you the 2-for-1s. Same thing with Snapcaster Mage. That's one of the reasons he's up here, is because you're going to be drafting the most powerful spells in Modern. Being able to cast those a second time is arguably more powerful than the spell you're casting itself. So when you're able to snap back like a Cryptic Command or a Gifts Ungiven or something along those lines, having a Snapcaster in there to recast it again is going to give you the ultimate value. It's 2-for-1 city, especially if you're going on a Cryptic Command. It's really like a 3-for-1 because you're going to get to do 2 things with that. So Snapcaster Mage makes my list right up there at the top. Karn Liberated, next on our list. I picked Karn because Karn is a game-winning card. It's going to come down. The least thing that it's going to do for you is take care of 2 permanents, which is fine, whether that be if your opponent's stuck on land, you start hitting lands with it, or if it comes down, takes a couple of creatures. If there's nothing to grab, you can start stuffing your opponent's hand under him, because Karn's ultimate lets you restart the game with every card you've exiled with Karn. So most of the time, when you restart the game with Karn, your opponent goes, let's go to game 2. So Karn is going to make almost every deck, almost every mid-range and control deck. You're probably not going to play him in an aggro deck, so by doing this, you're kind of committing yourself to a mid-range or control strategy, which is why it isn't quite as high as like a Batterskull or a Worm Coil. But it is colorless. You're still flexible. You don't have to commit to a color yet. You can see where everybody else is at and pick which archetype you want to go into after you see where everybody else is. Same thing with Ugin. Ugin's going to come down, wipes the board if you need him to, takes out 1 creature if you need him to, or just puts your opponent on a clock if you're at parity. You have 6 creatures, they have 6 creatures, you're not really going anywhere. You slam this thing down and start bolting their face. Or you start taking out the creatures so you can swing in. Either way, his ultimate is going to be a game winner. It just, on the spot, you look at the top, I think it's like 8 cards or something like that, and put all the permanents into play. It's game breaking. You're going to win by ultimating him. And he sticks around after his ultimate unless your opponent has been chipping away at him. So when you ultimate him, you get to keep using him, which is clutch. So either of these 2 is going to go in most mid-range and control strategies, so it still leaves you flexible. I like drafting those 2 pretty highly. Next on my list, and the reason it's not higher is because there are more powerful things that you can do, but Sword of Fire and Ice is one of the biggest card advantage engines that you're going to be able to take advantage of no matter what deck that you're drafting. So Sword of Fire and Ice is going to give you protection from red and blue, so a couple decks is going to be super relevant against if you're facing the mono red deck or if you're facing any kind of blue-based deck. You're going to be able to nail in with your creatures a little bit more often. It's also going to buffer your unit. When you hit a player, it's going to shock either a creature or them, and it's going to draw you a card. So it's just generating infinite value by attacking with it. If you put on evasive creature, something with flying, or I guess unblockable, although I'm not too high on the unblockability in this format. But if you put on something with flying, something evasive, something with menace, it's just going to generate you 2-for-1s over and over and over. So the long game grind, this is like a legal Umezawa's Jitte. Next on my list, Court of Calling. Now, this is, again, you're planting a flag and saying, I am a green creature-based deck. But in a green creature-based deck, this is one of the most powerful cards that you can draft. It's right up there. A lot of people would have like a Noble Hierarch or a Birds of Paradise in its place, but there's so many mana dorks. You have Elvish Mystic. One that everybody forgets about is Avacyn's Pilgrim. That usually goes hand in hand there with the Noble and the Birds. And Llanowar Elves. There's almost infinite one-drop mana dorks that you're going to be able to draft because you're not going to want more than 2 or 3 of those guys anyways. So Court of Calling is a lot more powerful effect. You can't find it anywhere else in the color, really, for as efficient as it is. It has Convoke, so you can cast it on a low mana curve off of your current creatures, and it's going to toolbox for you. So what you get to do is you can start drafting things like Reclamation Sage or other answers, Quasali Pride Mage, Ether Sworn Canoist, I guess, if it becomes relevant, or the Eidolon, or just something that's going to draw you a card. Whatever you need it to do, it can even ramp you. You can even cast it on 4 to go grab a Dork, or 3 to go grab a Dryad Arbor, and you can use it as ramp if you need that. It's a very flexible card that's going to do everything that you want it to do. Mana Leak is next on my list. It actually is. It's lower for me than Snapcaster Mage because it's not card value. But what it is, we're into efficient removal now. Mana Leak's one of the more efficient removal spells. I do view it as a removal spell. But it doesn't. It's not like other removal spells. It doesn't take care of stuff on the board. That being said, it's efficient enough to make up for that, for what it is. It's the most efficient counter spell that you're going to have consistent uses for in the format. It's going to do everything you need to do. It's castable on almost any turn because most of the time in these limited kind of environments, people are casting 5 drops on turn 5, 6 drops on turn 6, and they're tapping out to do it. So it's always going to get something. It doesn't cost you much if you don't use it. What I mean by that is, let's say it's turn 5, and you cast a 3-drop and hold this open. You still got to cast a 3-drop on that turn, and if your opponent doesn't cast anything or nothing worth countering, you didn't actually lose that much, which is, on the flip side, I think, and this is going to sound crazy, but cancel, any kind of cancel, any 3-drop counter spell isn't going to do that for you because on that turn 5, you're only able to cast a 2-drop, and there's a huge difference between 2 drops and 3 drops. So the efficiency of it really puts it over the top. And speaking of efficiency, we're on to Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt is one of the more efficient, it is basically the most flexible card that Red has. It can function as removal for early creatures or even later creatures. Most of the creatures with activated abilities that you're going to want to get rid of at the end are going to die to Lightning Bolt. The other thing it gives you is reach. So at the end of a aggro game, usually what happens is you cast a 1-drop, it's a 2-1 or a 2-2 on turn 1, and then you go 2-drop, another efficient dude, 3-drop, another efficient dude, and you're crashing them in sideways. And then you get to a point where your opponent has some bigger blockers that they've put down because they invested in a bigger strategy, and you're at the point where you can't swing in anymore, but they're at a low life total. That's the goal of Reddit, at least in the aggro decks, is to get them to a low life total. So because you have things like Lightning Bolt for reach, where it doesn't matter if they have creatures or not, you're able to bolt them and kill them. So Bolt's going to give you a little bit of reach, and it's the most efficient form that Modern has to offer. And last, and certainly, well, I shouldn't say not least, probably least on this one, is Path to Exile. It's the most efficient removal spell in Modern. It's going to get rid of almost every threat, anything without hexproof or protection from white, it's going to get rid of. It's at the cost of a land, which is fine because it's a 1-drop. And the ability to, at instant speed, get rid of any creature on the board is worth first-round pick. That efficiency is going to allow you to do some things like in a green-white deck, you're able to cast your 1-drop, 2-drop, and then another 2-drop and hold this open, and you don't get punished for it. Again, we're going back to that not getting punished. And you don't get punished for leaving 1 mana open. So Path to Exile is super efficient. You can do whatever you're going to do anyway and still cast your Path to Exile. In some very, very rare cases, you can use it to ramp yourself too, but that's not the reason we pick it. So it's not very flexible, but it is efficient. That's why it makes the list. That's it for my top round picks. These are going to cover most every scenario. The only case that I wouldn't pick one of these on is if you are spot 8. If you are able to pick 2 cards at one time, you can change your outlook a little bit. You're able to do more things, but I'm going to talk about that again in a later video. For the most part, this is going to be your power picks for round 1. That's all I got for today. Shout out to Gamer Ammo. If you're seeing this there, you're already here. If not, go visit gamerammo.pro. They're the ones that are sponsoring this content. And that's all I got, so I'll catch you on the flip side.